Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 387. 4 treasures explored by Meeple Nation.
Welcome, citizens of Meeple Nation. For the next 30 minutes, sit back and enjoy.
Meeple Nation Podcast is sponsored by GameToppersLLC.com. Go to their website, check out their amazing product. Andy was just crazy enough to buy himself a second Mycroft.
Now the race is on.
Who's going to break that tie? Whose collection is bigger? Whose tabletops are bigger? Who has the more game toppers? I guess I'm going to probably have to wait till next year to buy my next one, though.
The question is, where are you going to put it?
Don't come to me with logistics. It's quantity, not where you're going to put it. It's a race.
It's a race.
The nice thing is, full Meeple Nation will have probably 80 square feet of game space when everything is all said and done.
We need to acquire a permanent location where we just bring all of our stuff together.
That would actually be amazing.
Compound, you say?
A compound, yeah.
I could get on board with that.
There's a golf course for sale near me.
Go to their website, check out everything they have there. You will be excited to upgrade your game night with product from GameToppersLLC.com.
Welcome to Meeple Nation. We are your hosts. I am Dave Holliday.
I'm Logan Howard.
I am Andy Holliday.
And I am Nathan Howard.
And we are here to pump you up about playing games.
Wow, the old Saturday Night Live.
If you have not been to our new updated webpage...
How long do we call it new?
I don't know. It's newish. All right, newish, updated webpage. Please do. Please go check it out. There's a lot more to see and do there now. You see some awesome blog posts.
Is there pictures?
There's some awesome pictures.
Is there past episodes?
You can link to past episodes.
Is there bios?
There are bios about each of us.
Because we know you've been dying to know information about me.
I read your bio every week.
That's why I like you, Andy.
So go check us out at meeplenation.com.
This week, we are exploring 4 different games that take a different look in a different direction in board games. So we're exploring different board games this week, and we have a good selection, I think. So we're going to start with David.
Above and Below. This is a game that I received, I think it was a Christmas gift, from our friends up in Washington, Michael and Katie Bishop. I don't even know when it started, but this couple is just a fantastic couple. I don't know how they knew or we knew that each other liked games. I just know we started playing games together. And it was awesome because they're real gamers. They have a lot of great taste in a lot of different board games. Before we started playing a lot of games with them, it was interesting because I think the majority of their games are 2-player. The majority of their plays were 2-player. They have small children that aren't really at the point where they can get into any of the bigger games at this point. We started playing games with them. It was awesome. They are just a phenomenal couple. They helped us out a lot during a lot of crazy times up there as well. So just great, great, great friends. One year, they decided to surprise me with a new game. And it was Above and Below. I had never heard of it. Quickly got to reading the rules, and you all know my favorite game is the new game, so I was super excited about it.
I love that you said that you quickly read the rules.
Okay.
Because we all know that's wrong.
You are absolutely correct. The process of reading the rules.
This one turned out to be a very popular game in my household, and really enjoyed it. So it's a 2 to 4 player game, 90-minute playing time. It's not super complicated, although it really seems like it at first. It was designed by Ryan Lockett and published by Red Raven Games.
Fun thing about that is Ryan also does all the art in these games, too.
Yeah, and a great job of it, too. It's unique, but it's fun. It's really cool. I like the artwork.
Side note, if you are a fan of Ryan's artwork, you can get a mat for your topper that is a Ryan Lockett themed mat.
Ooh, that's cool.
Side note, Andy took my side note.
Side note, I enjoyed the side note.
Which one, mine or Andy's?
Andy's. Dang it.
Here's a better side
He
note.
reads my bio.
One of my new mats is the Ryan Lockett themed mat.
Very
Nice
cool.
It is a very beautiful map.
So in this game, Your last village was ransacked by barbarians, and you barely had time to pick up the baby and your favorite fishing pole before they started burning and pillaging, braved forest peaks, and even paddled a log across a rough sea, kicking at the sharks whenever they got too close, the baby strapped tightly to your back. Then you found it, the perfect place to make your new home. But as soon as you had the first hut built, you discovered a vast network of caverns underground, brimming with shiny treasures, rare resources, and untold adventure. How could you limit your new village to the surface? You immediately start organizing expeditions and building houses underground as well as on the surface. That's where Above and Below gets its name, and it earns its name. The gameplay in this is very good, and the way that you explore both above and below is great. And you have different bums. You have different bottoms. You get different bonuses based on different buildings that you build, whether they are above ground or below ground. One of my favorite things about this game is as you go explore, it's kind of a story-based game. You decide how many people you're going to take with you into your exploration below, how many of your citizens. You roll a die, and that tells you what story you are going to read. You take the top card. Based on the roll of the six-sided die, you know what story you're going to flip to, what paragraph you're going to read. And it's just a simple little story, and then you have some decisions to make based on the villagers that you take with you. You'll have different results on your exploration. After having explored that, if you succeed, you have an open space where you can build a hut under the ground. When you build a hut, you're going to get different rewards. Some of them are resources. Sometimes it's an extra bed, which is great because you need beds so that your villagers can rest after using them. Because after activating a villager, they're tired and they need rest. And if you don't have enough beds, you don't get to rest all of your villagers, and you have less that you can use in the next round.
Not only that, you can push your villagers to exert themselves a little bit more, but then they're going to be 2 levels down. They're going to be exhausted. They have to rest double time to get back up to where they're actually available to use again.
The more beds you have, the better to help with that.
Be writing a blog about this. It is not an app that is actually for the game, but there is an app that you can get that adds all the narration to this.
Oh, cool.
So,
Nice.
Professional narration done for all you have to do is type in the number that you're going to be narrating, and it reads it to you.
I see more and more games going along this lines. Like last week we talked about Forgotten Waters. I believe there's an app out there that does the same thing for Gloomhaven.
There is.
We haven't ever employed it. We should.
We started to for Jaws of the Lion, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I think that's great. Give that extra feel.
Especially in games like this that helps the game become a little more immersive. I think it's great. Amplifies the enjoyment of the game.
I agree.
In Above and Below, I mentioned the villagers that you get. So there are different types of villagers that can do different things. Builders, they have a little hammer. Some of the villagers are trainers. They're represented by a feather. You use those to go and recruit more villagers. I guess train more villagers. And then those villagers come into your play area, and then you can use them to do different things. It's nice to have a bunch of them, and it's nice to have a variety of different types. When you go down to explore, for me, I almost always want to have 3 villagers with me when I go down there because there's going to be different challenges. Villagers will have a little lantern on them that represents how far they can explore, how good a chance that they have of exploring successfully. You read a little paragraph about what's going on, and most of these stories are very fun. I love the writing on these as well. And you have some decisions to make. You're usually presented with a couple of choices to explore further or to fight something. Ultimately, you're going to roll a die for each explorer, and each villager has a little spot where it shows what a success is on the die. On some of them, a 2 or higher would be a success. Some of them you have to have a 5 or higher on the 6-sided die, and so some are better than others for exploration. Ultimately, if you get enough lanterns to successfully explore, you now can grow your village below the surface as well. Above and Below is a great game. This is my son Dalton's favorite game. He always, if we talk about playing a game, he's like, is it Above and Below? Because if it is, I'm in. Dalton is currently living away from home. Dalton's incarcerated currently, and Nathan Tenney, our friend from Washington, has been super awesome, and he visits Dalton almost every week. Dalton's up in Washington. His visits are all virtual currently. There are certain time slots that he can do it, and Nathan has been super awesome about scheduling visits almost every week. Leading up to SaltCon, Dalton was telling him, you have to play Above and Below with my dad. Dalton's been talking to him about it, and Nathan hasn't played it yet. Then he told me the same thing, and then I feel bad because we let him down and we didn't play it. We had too many other things going on. Nathan and I will play that soon.
Yeah, I don't get the point of that story. I'm just sad now.
Above and Below is a great game.
That's a better note to end on.
And definitely one worth checking out.
Alright, my game is Break In Alcatraz. Last week when we were talking about exploration games, we talked about escape rooms and how they have a whole genre of games inside it. So Break In is that type of game, except it takes a little spin on it. So instead of breaking out of the room, you're trying to break in. So in this scenario, because it's one of those once play the game, you can't play it again, you're breaking into Alcatraz. You're the outside man, and you're trying to help a few of your buddies escape the inescapable prison. Collaborative experience. You must work together, follow a series of clues to solve puzzles to unfold the multiple layers of the game, and move deeper into the facility.
And when it says multiple layers, it means multiple layers.
Because this game is, what would you say, Andy, like 4 inches tall?
4.5 inches tall.
The entire board, everything is contained in there, everything's a puzzle. You open the lid, and it starts taking you through a little tutorial. It has these solution sticks, little puzzles to get through. Have the stick that you stick inside the box that'll tell you to read something to see if you got the right solution for the puzzle. I think the only problem that we really had with the game was how the puzzles were worded.
I think that's true, and I think also the downfall of games like this, I think it plays better in smaller groups. I know we've talked about this in the past, but you have certain people that just sit back and don't really participate, and you almost have to force them to participate.
Yeah, that's Nathan's problem with games like Chronicles of Crime, where he just kind of sits back, lets you do you. This is the type of game you have to almost draw them in. You can't. It's not like it's your turn, you have to do something.
We played this with a fairly large group. I think there were 7 of us.
And
Whoa, that's more than
Not
the
even
player
6
count.
of us.
Okay.
Well, even if there were 7, I mean, like, what's really the downside too is that you're opening the box, and as you're solving the puzzles, you're opening it to create other scenes. Puzzle and the hints are included all inside the game box. That's the other downside of larger groups. I think that's why BGG says community is best 2, maybe to 4.
I agree.
Then you have to pass the actual entire game around so that everybody can stop and stare at it, take a little different angle, look at it upside down.
This game was so cool physically. I was boggled. I wanted to love it because I was so entranced by all of that. Put everything in and unfold something, and then later you're going to unfold that, breaking into it. The problem I really felt with this game was it was too vague, maybe is a word for it. So many of the things were so... It's kind of like when you're asking questions to someone, you're teaching or something else, right? And you're trying to ask a leading question, and you realize that was a dumb question because they don't have any idea where I'm trying to lead them. And I felt like it was the reverse of that almost. Even when you were checking and going for hints, I can't remember how many times we're looking at hints and we're going, I still don't know where this is trying to take us or how we were supposed to get this from this.
Because it was almost like every single clue, somebody had to bite the bullet and step away from the game, read the hint. Okay, are we on the right track?
Mm-hmm.
That's the tough thing with these games. These games are a lot like Logan. Sometimes they think they're a little too clever.
All the time, I think I'm too clever.
When we played Decrypto with Logan, Logan has some amazing clues. And
that after you explain them, they're like, wow, that was a great clue.
Yeah.
And then when you're playing the game, not so much.
Yeah, not so much.
And I know that issue going in, but it's still my issue.
It's very tough to get that and maybe even play test that well. Depending on the pool that you're play testing with, they might pick up your hints easier than other groups. All I'm saying is it's tough to make these games.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even the clues, that was my biggest issue, is the clues were fairly ambiguous. So you'd look at the clue and it's like, okay, that really didn't help at all.
Yeah, you'd almost have to look for like how it's telling you to find the solution. But this game, I think it was worth the time that we played.
I 100% agree.
I'm looking forward to breaking Area 51.
Yeah.
I fully look forward to playing that one. I know that you reset yours, Andy. Since I have a terrible memory, we could play it again in probably a year, and I'll be fine.
That was my leading question. You said it was a one-time use, so there's games like Exit, which is a one-time use because you destroy the game. I was going to ask, are these a one-time use game?
I think they're designed to be that, but we were nice when we put it back together.
Well, we were nice when we took it apart, so we could put it back together. I'm with Logan. My memory is not the greatest. I could put that on my shelf a year or two, pull out to play it again, and I would have just as hard of a time. Play so many games. No way for me to remember how that all went together and what the clues mean.
Talking to somebody introducing to the hobby via, hey, I'm in a podcast, and talking about that information, talking about the number of games that I have, 750 different games.
How many do you have, Andy Poops?
760 something games, I think. How many was it, Nathan? 750?
I
How
said
many?
750, yeah.
So 751.
So Andy's got the slightly longer game table toppers too, doesn't he?
I think I'm in the 650 or 660. I haven't added all my new ones, so.
This gentleman asked, how do you keep all those rules straight? Well, you don't. You lose stuff. With that many games, there's no way I could be fluent on 750 games, me personally. Somebody out there might have no problem. David, your brother, Dennis?
Yeah.
He probably would have no problem with that. Me, on the other hand, you get more than 10 games, you add an 11th game, I kick that first game out.
There's even games that we play, and a month and a half later we get it to the table. Like we played Destiny's recently. First time to the second time, it was just like, I almost forgot completely how to play, and it hadn't even been that long. But sometimes it happens. But anyway, with Break-In, you can put it back together, so you can put it back on the shelf and forget about it for a year or two. Play it again if your heart desires. I think, like Andy said, the 3D components in the game are amazing. Better with smaller groups so that we can all surround and look at the game board. Don't be afraid to look through the clues.
You get the same thing when you're in an escape room. You want to be able to defeat the game. But if you get stuck, nothing wrong with asking for help.
Zombie one, we finished with like 15 seconds left, but
Yeah.
hey, we finished. That was the most important thing.
Yeah, that one was fun.
Main thing that makes me worried about playing Area 51, though, is that the difficulty of this one was 2 out of 5. I feel that it was plenty difficult, so I don't know if I want to try a 3 out of 5. I don't know if I'm clever enough for that.
Maybe playing this again right before we do Area 51, so we kind of get a feel of how the writers did the clues and feel of the game again, and then play Area 51. We might have a better look at it.
That is very true, Andy. But breaking Alcatraz, I think it's worth it. Cheaper game, and I've seen it available at Targets, Walmarts. It's a game that's more widely mass-produced. Well worth your time, in my opinion, just for the experience.
I'm going to talk about a game that we've kind of highlighted here and there. We talked about it when we discussed SaltCon this year. It's one that we hosted, and that is Dead Men Tell No Tales. This is a pirate-themed game.
What? Andy liking a pirate-themed game?
It is. It's a pirate-themed game. It's 2 to 5 players. We played a 5-player game at SaltCon. It was amazing. It plays in 60 to 75 minutes. Not a heavy game. BGG has it rated at a 2.52. The designer is Kane Klenko. The publisher is Minion Games. If I'm not mistaken, they just barely reprinted this, so it is available if anyone's interested. Wonderful game. The Skeleton Revenge is the most feared ship on the high seas, and you've finally taken it. Captain Fromm and his skeleton crew have amassed a massive treasure, and now is your chance to take it all. Players take on the role of pirates who are boarding the Skeleton's Revenge for one purpose: to take the loot. They must battle the flames, the skeleton crew, and their own fatigue if they hope to make it out alive. It's a cooperative game, uses common action point system. In a 5-player game, you have, if you're using the Kraken expansion, you use 6 coins. You have 6 actions. Each coin represents an action. Just the base game, it's 5 coins. Those actions are moving. You can walk or run. If you run, you gain extra fatigue for running. You can fight fires. You can eliminate deckhands. You can pick up a treasure. You can pick up an item. Now, the different items that in the game is you have rum is going to reduce your fatigue. You have a fatigue meter on your player board, a clock, essentially. And as you're gaining fatigue, when you hit a certain threshold on your dial, you can no longer enter rooms of a certain fire level. So there's D6s on every single room that has fire in it. If it gets to a 6, that room explodes. And when you enter a room, you're going to take fatigue equal to the difference of the room you were in and the room that you go into, if the room you're going into is a higher value, a higher fire value. So if I'm in a level 3 fire room and I move into a room with level 4 fire, I'm going to take 1 point of fatigue. So one of the other actions that you can do, you can increase your battle strength. You have a track on the bottom of your character that has a picture of your character, and you can move it up 1 space to increase your battle strength. Battle strength is going to add to your die roll results whenever you are going to battle skeleton crew or one of the guards that's holding one of the treasures. ultimately what you're trying to do is gain the treasures. It depends on the difficulty you're trying to do. So in a 5-player game, you're trying to get 5 treasures off the ship. That means you need to explore. You only see 4 tiles at the beginning of the game on this ship. In the beginning of your turn, you're adding tiles to the ship. And you need to find the guards that are carrying the treasure, get to the guards that are carrying the treasure, which is going to cause fatigue. Whenever you enter a space that has a skeleton crew or a guard, you immediately have to fight them.
Fire, you have to fight.
You have to fight fire. There's deckhands that can impede your movement. If there's 3 deckhands in one area, then you can't move into there until you eliminate some of those deckhands. Then eventually you need to get into where the guard is, defeat the guard, and the guards are tougher to beat than the skeleton crew, and then they will drop the treasure, and then you have to get the treasure out. Once you pick up the treasure, that drastically limits your actions that are available to you. Basically, all you can do is move and rest. You can't run and rest. You can only walk and rest. It gets pretty tough, especially if that treasure's towards the back of the ship. Now, once you have everything explored, then you can exit on either side of the ship.
That's what I was just going to ask, because I remember there being alternative exits.
Yeah, the only way that is by exploring the entire ship. You can't explore any faster than what the game allows. Each person at the beginning of the game reveals 2 tiles, and then they only reveal 1 on their turn. You can't explore any faster than the game allows you to.
But what's interesting is when you're flipping over these tiles, they're not all identical. They have different number of entry points or exit points. Some of them are just a dead end. 1 entrance to the room, all the other 3 walls are closed off. It's a dead end. Depending on when you draw the tiles, and then you have to legally place them somewhere, totally make it so it could have a maze to get to one of those treasures if you don't set it up right.
Yeah, that's why you have to be smart about where you're putting these down and talk about it with everybody, not just pull a Logan and just drop it down because it looks good.
Well, not only that, is if you draw a tile that you cannot legally place, you lose the game.
Oh, that's right.
So many ways to lose this game and only one way to win. The only way to win is to get the correct number of treasures off the ship and have every single pirate get off the ship. And then you win the game. The ship can explode. There's an explosion track. So anytime there's an explosion, whether it's a barrel that'll explode, some room tiles will have a barrel with a number on it. When that fire gets to that level, the powder keg explodes and will increase the fire level in the room that's adjacent to the door where the powder keg is. If a room gets to 6, it explodes. If your explosion track gets all the way up to the skull, you lose the game. There's a bag of deckhands that you will be placing on the board whenever deckhands expand or spawn. And if you run out of deckhands, you lose the game. A lot of different ways to lose the game. Trying to mitigate all of this, and you're trying to not strand your pirates. Because if rooms explode, then that just creates this void in the ship, and you can make a pirate essentially die because of the fact that they've been cut off and have absolutely no way out. Like you guys said, if they're in a dead end, and a room explodes that now they can't get out of that dead end, essentially you start with a new pirate. Once all of your pirates run out, so you have a pool of pirates that you can play, once all of them are gone, if you exhaust all your pirates, they're all dead, and you need to draw another pirate to play, can't, it's another way to lose the game. Overall, this game it's chaotic. It is a bit intense. We've said this before.
I thought it was on a pirate ship.
You are.
It is, or in whatever room in which you want to play it. You don't have to be intent. One of the words that you used to describe this before, Andy, was cinematic.
It is very cinematic.
And the first time you used that word to describe this game, I thought, oh my goodness, he nailed it right there. Thematically, I think as far as games and the theme working and it working for every part of it, this may be one of the best games that way that I've played in a long time. Every bit of it thematically fits and works, and it works all together to create that cinematic experience that is just awesome.
Your character can die, but you're not eliminated. Sure, right. It hurts you, and it hurts your chances of survival, but still you have the opportunity to keep playing. I think that's great. So you don't worry too much about, holy smokes, I have too much damage, I can't do anything. Because if it happens, okay, well, we'll move on. I love options like that.
You know, the downside dying, I mean, you obviously don't want your pirates to die, but one of the downsides is that each pirate has an asymmetrical power, and that power is lost if that pirate is eliminated. Now, granted, you get a new pirate with a new power that's different. Some powers, let's say deckhands are getting out of control and you really need to eliminate deckhands. Well, there's a pirate that has a power that is really effective at eliminating deckhands. Depending on what you're struggling with in the game at that point, which a lot of times you're struggling with a lot of stuff, trying to keep the ship from blowing up.
Everything's everywhere.
Everything's everywhere. It's very chaotic. When we played at SaltCon, played with the Kraken expansion, and we had defeated the Kraken, and we had gotten the last treasure off. I was the last pirate on the ship, and I was going to be able to get off on my turn as long as nothing blew up, and we were really close. We had one space left on the explosion track. Otherwise, we were going to lose. As soon as everyone's off the ship, you immediately end and you win the game. So you don't even finish the round. My pirate ran into a room. The last room right next to the door had a bottle of rum. I made sure I grabbed that bottle of rum and drank it before I jumped off the ship. And it just fit perfectly with the pirate theme, right? Where, oh, there's a bottle of rum. I got to drink that before I go. We had so much fun playing that game.
Doug and his daughter Amberly played it. And I think she said that this was her favorite game of the con. She really, really enjoyed it.
Which is pretty high praise because she is quite the gamer.
Yeah, and she played a lot of different games.
And that was actually the first game I think that she played was Dead Men Tell No Tales. Highly recommend Dead Men Tell No Tales. Every time I've played, I enjoyed it. Each time I've played, I've enjoyed it more than the previous time. That's Dead Men Tell No Tales. The expansion's awesome.
The expansion adds a lot.
I think it was great. I love the Kraken expansion. Minis expansion, you can add miniatures to it. I also think it adds components and makes it a little cooler. So that is Dead Men Tell No Tales.
The last game we're going to talk about is Pandemic Legacy in general, but I'm going to focus on Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Pandemic Legacy, all of them are 2 to 4 players with a playtime of about 60 minutes for each scenario. Designed by Rob Davio and Matt Laycock, and published by Z-Man Games. Pandemic Legacy is a cooperative campaign game with an overarching story played across 12-24 sessions, depending on how well your group plays. At the beginning, the game starts very similar to a basic pandemic game, in which your team is disease-fighting specialists, race against the clock, travel around the world treating disease hotspots while researching cures for each of the 4 plagues before they get out of hand. Pandemic Season 1. Season 2 is going to be completely different, and Pandemic Season 0 is, again, completely different from the other 2.
So avoiding spoilers.
2 and 0, they're each different. 2 introduces a whole new exploration based 70 years after Pandemic Season 1, so the world's kind of suffering from this fallout. We're in a post-apocalyptic world, and most of the world's gone dark. No communication. You're on ships that were at sea during the pandemic breakout. Those ships are now running out of resources, so now you're trying to explore inland to try to fight off the infected, to try to find a cure to reestablish humankind and reconnect the world. Even more different than that, Season 0 is based before Pandemic Season 1, thus the name 0. This is during the Cold War. The Soviets, the Allies, and those neutral regions of the world. The Soviets are trying to form a viral weapon, and you're working with the CIA to try to prevent that. Very different games, all 3, but they all 3 still follow those same pandemic mechanics. Each turn, players are going to draw 2 cards at the end of their turn, and then they're going to, through the infection phase, reveal 2 to 3 cards where infections are going to break out. I love the pandemic theme. I think it's fun. Not everybody really digs it. When you combine that with this legacy, the game becomes on its own. The 4 of us played through Pandemic Season 1, which was my 3rd time playing through that. This last time I let you guys make all the decisions. I wouldn't influence any of the decisions at all. Just went through and took my turn. Still had a blast with that. My wife and I, when we played Season 0, we did exceptionally well. In fact, there was only 1 month that we lost. So we only ended up playing 13 sessions of that. And still had a blast. Going back to Season 1, right off of that pandemic game, so that base pandemic game, in my opinion, you should not start at Season 0 and then play through to Season 1, Season 2. I think you should start with Season 1, then play Season 2, play Season 0. The overall story of the theme behind them all just kind of makes sense in that order.
My opinion is you should not start at Pandemic, but Pandemic Legacy.
That could be a good recommendation for sure.
So we have Pandemic at home. Played it several times, and it's nothing compared to Pandemic Legacy. They took an okay game, but making it a legacy game improved that game substantially, exponentially. I mean, it is so much better than the base game.
No, I totally agree with you. There's a lot of people who love Pandemic.
I'm not one of those people, but Legacy got me. I've played it a few times. Yeah, this isn't bad. but just the consequences, the evolving board, everything that Legacy was able to bring to the regular Pandemic game just pushed it over the edge for me.
I think you're spot on. Adding that Legacy element was huge. It makes a good game an amazing game. You're having that experience. Yeah, you're going to throw that game away afterwards. Or you can keep it and frame it on your wall. I still have all the copies that I've played, except for the ones with my wife. My wife made me throw our copies away. The copy that Brent and I ran through Season 2 and Season 1, I still have those. Copy that the four of us played for Season 1, I have that still. I don't know why, because we're never going to play it again. To keep it for that memory, I guess, for that sense of accomplishment. The exploration in each of those, well done, well played. Highly recommend any one of those. Without giving too much information, giving any spoilers, I'm going to pretty much just leave it at that. Recommend that as an exploration game, Pandemic Legacy, atop on my chart, and well worth your time.
There you have it. 4 exploration games.
We have explored them thusly. As foretold, it is the ending of our episode.
Until next time.
We'll see you exploring some more games. Maybe you can tell us what your treasure exploration game is.
As always, we want to thank you for listening.
Check out our website. We have all sorts of cool things there. Love those blogs. Get a deeper look into the writing side of Meeple Nation.
Join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. I look forward to seeing you there.
Follow us on Twitter, @Meeple Nation. We also have Instagram.
Under the same name. We also want to thank our sponsor, GameToppersLLC.com.
We love their product, and they have so much goodness out there.
And we also want to thank Braden Detergent for our music.